Good morning, everyone, esteemed guests, colleagues, and distinguished speakers. First of all, happy International Women's Day. We're so happy to welcome you all to the LSE to celebrate this big day and to hear from these distinguished speakers and guests who have come today. Today's theme is Empowering Women in Agriculture, Navigating Peace, Conflict, and Food Security. This event is co-organized by the Firoz Lalji Institute for Africa, Middle East Centre, International Development Department, and the Arab International Women's Forum. Almost forgot, and the Women, Peace and Security Centre. To begin, I would like to introduce Haifa Al-Kailiani, OBE, President and the founder of the Arab International Women's Forum and the Advisory Council member of the World Agriculture Forum. Haifa has been a leading voice in advocating for women's empowerment, leadership, and sustainable development in the agricultural sector and beyond. We're delighted to have her here with us today to share her insights. Please welcome Ms. Haifa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Safija. Good morning, and happy International Women's Day. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm truly honored and proud, both personally and as president and founder of the Arab International Women's Forum, to welcome you all today, to add my welcome to Safija and to welcome you all today to our joint conference held on the very special occasion of International Women's Day 2025 in partnership with the London School of Economics and Political Science. I extend my warmest thanks and appreciation to Professor Joanna Lewis, Director of the Center for Women, Peace and Security at the LSE, and the many centers at the LSE that have been integral to making today's conference a reality. The Firoz Lalji Institute for Africa, the LSE Centre for Women, Peace and Security, the LSE International Development Department, and the LSE Middle East Centre. We are grateful to you all for your support. The theme of our conference is Empowering Women in Agriculture, Navigating Peace, Conflict, and Food Security. A valuable platform amplifying the voices of women who are truly transforming the agricultural sector and driving sustainable practices within their communities and beyond. The role of women in agriculture is at the heart of what the Arab International Women's Forum has been also focusing on. And especially since 2017, in the UK, the Arab region, and globally. We're indeed delighted to be cooperating with the LSE on this special conference today. Through our conversations that we hope to have with you all today, we plan to and we aim to promote women-led innovation and advocacy in agriculture across Africa and the MENA regions. We will address critical sustainability issues that disproportionately impact women, young people, and the community and their communities. We look for new and strategic solutions that put women at the heart of policy and progress. As we look ahead to a more prosperous and human-centered future in the Arab world and in the Africa regions, a future that firmly puts women's leadership at the heart of economic and social development. The International Women's Day 2025 campaign theme is Accelerating Action, and that is exactly what we're here all to do today, to scale up the progress that has already been made in the Africa, Middle East, and North Africa regions, the breadbaskets of the world throughout history. Distinguished guests, first I would like to share a brief overview on the role of women in sustainable agriculture in Africa and the MENA region. Food insecurity and water scarcity are pressing challenges in both MENA and Africa regions, impacting millions and threatening economic stability and public health. In 2023, approximately 186.5 million people in the MENA region faced moderate or severe food insecurity. Africa has over half of the world's extreme poverty cases and 298.4 million people facing hunger, including 163 million in acute food insecurity. Water scarcity exacerbates these crises, with the MENA region being the most water-stressed region globally, affecting 83% of its population. Women and young people bear the brunt of these challenges, worsened by climate shocks, conflict, and instability. MENA has the world's lowest female labor force participation, 24%, and the highest gender gap in entrepreneurship, while Africa faces declining female labor force participation, 52% in 2020. According to the World Bank, in North Africa, less than 25% of women participate in the labor force, while in sub-Saharan Africa, most female employment is in smallholder agriculture and informal self-employment. This underscores the need for sustainable resource management, investment in climate-resilient agriculture, education, infrastructure, and funding, with women at the center of policy. Investing in African agri-food systems could raise incomes 3 times more effectively than other sectors due to Africa's skilled workforce and abundant arable land. To highlight some of the contributions and as well as the challenges of women in agriculture in both regions. Agriculture is central to economic growth, accounting for 1/3 of the global GDP, according to the World Bank. It's one of the most effective tools for reducing poverty, increasing incomes, and improving food security for 80% of the world's rural poor. FAO data shows that women comprise 43% of the agricultural labor force globally, and they play a crucial role in agricultural innovation and productivity across Africa and the MENA. In Africa, 79% of women's income comes from agriculture, and 75% of the agricultural workforce is female. However, women farmers have lower productivity due to limited access to land, financing, and modern agricultural inputs, rather than a lack of their farming skills. According to UN Women, closing the gender gap in access to agricultural inputs could increase crop production by up to 19%, boost agricultural GDP, and lift millions out of poverty. Women in the MENA comprise 50% of the agricultural workforce, exceeding 60% in Jordan, Libya, Syria, and Palestine. However, they remain underrepresented in formal agricultural markets, owning less than 5% of agricultural land, and only 13% have access to financial services, restricting their ability to invest in climate-resilient farming, modern equipment, and market expansion. In Tunisia, women make up 70% of the agricultural workforce, yet earn 50% less than men. In Egypt, 45% of agricultural labor is female, with women spending 70% of their working time on animal husbandry, yet only own 2% of the land. In Morocco, 52% of employed women work in agriculture, but often in the informal economy, where they lack any social protection. Despite their significant contributions, women in agriculture face systems barriers that hinder their productivity and economic potential. One of the most significant challenges for women in agriculture is limited land ownership. In many African and MENA countries, customary laws and inheritance practices prevent women from owning or inheriting land. In sub-Saharan Africa, less than 20% of landowners are women, while in the MENA, women own less than 5% of the agricultural land. Financial exclusion is another major challenge. Many financial institutions require collateral for loans which women often lack. As a result, female farmers receive less than 10% of agricultural financing in several African countries. Women also have limited access to agricultural inputs and technology. Gender disparities in digital literacy prevent women from benefiting from modern farming technologies and financial tools. Unpaid and informal labor is another barrier. Women perform a significant share of unpaid agricultural work, which remains invisible in economic statistics. Women are also excluded from cooperatives and decision-making bodies. This lack of representation reduces, obviously, their bargaining power, limiting access to training and resources, and prevents them from influencing policies. Climate change has worsened these challenges. Women in agriculture are disproportionately affected by droughts, water scarcity, and land degradation. Yet they play a very critical role in adaptation and resilience building. To address these challenges, governments, business, and international organizations must pursue the following: ensure equal land rights and property ownership for women, expanding access to agricultural finance and credit, investing in climate-smart agriculture and sustainable water management, strengthening women's leadership in cooperatives and decision-making bodies, provide social protection for women in informal agricultural work, and promote digital inclusion by investing in agricultural technology, mobile banking, and literacy programs, and implementing gender-responsive policies that address climate change impact on women. Empowering women in agriculture is not only a matter of equality, but an economic necessity. With better access to land, financing, and decision-making, women could significantly increase agricultural output, strengthen food security, and drive economic development in the MENA and Africa regions. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, empowering women in sustainable agriculture, climate action, and the rural economy has been a key focus of our work and advocacy for over 2 decades. We firmly believe that Africa and the MENA region must prioritize women's role in climate action, as they are at the forefront of addressing environmental challenges. Our call to action is absolutely clear. Governments must collaborate with the private sector and academia and civil society to establish programs that support women entrepreneurs in sustainable agriculture. Women entrepreneurs need access to subsidies, grants, and training to encourage their growth and inspire more women to enter and thrive in agribusiness and in agri-tech. Investment in education, vocational training, and mentorship is absolutely essential to help women in agriculture start, scale, and create much-needed jobs that we need in the region. Women in agriculture, research, sciences, and policy making must be empowered to lead, shaping sustainable agricultural policies and reforming global food systems through a gender-inclusive lens. This is a pivotal moment for entrepreneurship in agriculture and rural economies across the MENA and across Africa. The sector is ripe for transformation, with opportunities for women and young leaders to reshape rural economies, modernize food production, and drive climate solutions that are urgently needed in both regions and that are key to fostering growth and prosperity, and with that, comes peace and stability in the community. While a lot of progress is being made, much work remains to be done, and we stand in the Arab International Women's Forum ready to support all stakeholders in advancing this mission. I thank you for your kind attention, and I wish you a very productive conference, and again, a very happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Ms. Al-Kalyani. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Caroline Green, Manager of the Center of Women, Peace and Security.
Thank you. Yes, happy International Women's Day, everyone, and a very warm welcome on behalf of the LSE Centre for Women, Peace and Security. The Centre was established back in 2014, and we offer a world-class research agenda to understand women's lived experience of conflict and to set out a vision of peace with women's rights at its heart. We do three things. We connect with women's rights activists, NGOs, research institutions, organisations working to promote and protect women's rights and embed women's voices in relief and recovery efforts and in conflict and post-conflict contexts. Secondly, we work to explore the gendered nature of insecurity and conflict settings and the effective pathways to inclusive peace, reflecting the evolving nature of modern challenges to the women, peace and security agenda, and I know we will touch on a lot of those today. We transform the actions of governments and international funders by setting out the steps needed to address gender inequality and realise women's rights in conflict and post-conflict settings. And in partnership, we convene seminars, events, and publications to share the wisdom and demands of women activists across the world and the solutions needed for sustainable change. According to the UN in 2023, over 600 million women and girls lived within 50 kilometres of a conflict, which is an increase of 41% since 2015. Putting women's voices at the forefront of peace efforts offers a route to a more inclusive peace and an end to the gender inequality that fuels insecurity for women, especially in times of conflict. We're delighted to co-host this special International Women's Day event today with the Arab International Women's Forum, the Firoz Lalji Institute for Africa at LSE, and who serve as hosts to the Women, Peace and Security Centre, the International Development Department, and the LSE Middle East Centre. It's an honour to extend a warm welcome to all of you here. Your expertise, experience and energy are critical as we address the barriers women continue to face in the food and agricultural sector. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to my colleague Sofia Spasnowska for her organisation of the conference today and the whole team involved. One of the first issues I learned about as a gender advisor in the development sector was that despite women producing the majority of the world's food, women often eat last and least, and times of crisis and conflict exacerbate this. This Women's Day conference aims to promote women-led innovation and advocacy in agriculture across Africa, address critical issues, and pave the way for sustainable development and peace. The impacts of accelerating environmental change, structural inequalities, gendered relations of power and conflict continue to constrain women's full participation in agricultural activities. However, despite these very real challenges, women are forging new pathways for agricultural innovation to address critical issues of sustainability, inequality, sovereignty and peace. In addressing the gender dimensions relating to land use, resource management, access to finance and technology, and the ever-growing threats of climate change, women's voices must be at the fore. Similarly, recovery after crises and conflicts must include women's participation in agricultural sectors in order to address food insecurity and economic instability and set the stage for sustainable peace. In this way, empowering women in agriculture is integral to achieving the goals of the Women, Peace and Security agenda. The sessions today will explore how women have significantly shaped the agricultural sector in Africa through their labour and innovative practices. It will explore the ways in which peace and conflict have shaped food security in Africa and its impact on women. And we will identify key strategies, policies, and initiatives to empower women and address the challenges they face. So thank you so much for all your contributions today and your ongoing work in these critical areas moving forward.
Thank you so much, Caroline. We now turn to a video address from Didi, President and CEO of One Campaign. She was not able to be here with us in person, so we have a recording for us.
Good morning. It's a wonderful pleasure to be with you today, and I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to share some welcome remarks and keynote remarks on this International Women's Day. As I reflect on the theme for International Women's Day, it's all about accelerating progress. Many of us have been on this journey for a long time. I currently serve as the CEO and president of the One Campaign, a global advocacy organization that works across the world, but are really focused on empowering and fighting for the investment to ensure economic opportunities and healthier lives in Africa. And our vision is that Africa is an equal player. One has offices in 9 countries, and across each of those countries, we know that we have to prioritize a few things to accelerate progress with African countries and to fight for this fairer landscape that we all demand. Now, I wanted to just mention that before I took on this role, I was an entrepreneur in the food and agricultural landscape, working on the ground to transform the ecosystem. I co-founded ACE Foods and Sahel Consulting, Sahel Capital, and then founded African Food Changemakers, which works with entrepreneurs in 40 African countries. And through both hats, now my hat as the CEO and president of the One Campaign, and my previous hat as an entrepreneur on the ground, I want to share 4 key steps that we must take to accelerate progress for women in agriculture and for the ecosystem. The first one is that we have to change narratives. We have to change narratives because fundamentally, the way we view African agency determines whether the continent can move forward or not. Now, I got into this space because I was confronted with this face of Africa. That the face of Africa was a hungry child, and the face of poverty was a female farmer from Africa. I was confronted with this image when I first came to the United States at 16. People would tell me, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'll tell Nigeria. And they say, "My mom used to say, finish your dinner. There are hungry children in Nigeria, or hungry children in Biafra, in Ethiopia, Band-Aid movement." That narrative, unfortunately, has stuck. And it's so dangerous for our food and agriculture lands, because if you think of the continent as a hungry child, you neglect that Africa has some of the best food in the world, that Africa can feed the world, actually. And that Africa has taught the world a lot about food. And that some of the best food that you interact with on a daily basis is sourced from Africa. But that narrative is hidden from you. And when you think of us as victims instead of agents of our own change, you end up saying, how can I help the poor Africans? Maybe we should give them free seeds or food, which then distorts local markets. So it's important that you become a narrative changer. That when you think about the continent, you think, how can I partner with Africa to ensure that we unlock the potential on the continent? How can I partner with Africa to ensure that African food gets on global shelves? How can I learn more about the amazing food practices and indigenous practices on the African continent? And you can find a lot of great stories on the African Food Changemakers website and lots of narrative changer podcasts and videos that we've done, so that that you can continue this journey alongside us. The second key step we have to take to accelerate progress is to invest in unlocking the policies and the financing required to grow the sector. Now, there are few policies that continue to hold women back in this sector. In Nigeria, only 4% of the land is owned by women. In Kenya, data shows that it's about 1%. Now, if only such a small percentage is owned by women, then female farmers are at risk If they rent land and cultivate and have a bumper harvest, the next year the owner of that land says, no, you have to pay double because you made so much money. They can't invest in irrigation, they can't invest in processing facilities because they don't own the land. And where they inherit land, oftentimes they're given the least productive land. And so we need to ensure that land reform policies are enacted across Africa. Because when women have access to land, they can invest. When the women have access to land that's titled, they can actually take a loan on them and they have access to financial services. And so something as simple as land reform policies are so critical to the evolution of our sector. We also need new policies around financing. We find that in many, many countries, women are closed up from formal financial institutions to get access to working capital, to get access to investment capital. That limits the progress they can make. And that's why we continue to have a huge gender gap in our food and agriculture landscape. The World Bank actually released data that shows that female farmers generate 30% less profits than their male counterparts because they don't have access to the fertilizer and seeds that they need to increase their productivity. So that is where policy comes in. And unlocking the financial access for them is key. And at the One Campaign, we fight for those investments because we believe patient and catalytic capital are critical for growth on the African continent. And there's so many other policies around logistics where we often see that we have middlemen in our ecosystem. We call them middlemen. Where are the middle women? We need women who own trucks and women who own pack houses and women who own the whole freight systems. And we need to unlock that by ensuring that we create windows in each of our financial institutions that allow for women to benefit from financial services and equitable access. Number 3, we need to ensure access to markets. You know, the challenge in many of our countries across the continent is that we've built markets for export. And we export raw materials, like cashews that are unprocessed, cocoa, instead of exporting products with value addition. Oftentimes, this narrative that Africans don't like chocolates, and that's why we export 70% of the world's cocoa, doesn't make any sense. Africans love chocolates. And guess what? We have female chocolatiers who are transforming the ecosystem in Nigeria. We have Luscious chocolate, which is some of the best chocolate. And not only is the chocolate good, it's homegrown, and she's innovative, meaning you can get your face on the chocolate. She creates chocolates for weddings and funerals. And the amazing thing is, our chocolates are now being used widely. And so we need to invest in value addition and then ensure access to markets in our countries and across Africa. And this is where the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and reducing the barriers for trademarks and for certifications to enable trade within our continent is critical. This is where we need to reduce trade barriers for African food to get on shelves, grocery stores, not the raw materials which the world loves, but the finished products that are proudly African, so that when you get to your grocery store, whether it's in the UK or in the US, you can see something made in Ghana that's a very high quality chocolate, or cashew nuts that are already pre-processed that are made in Benin Republic, or whatever it is. And that's where we really need to fight to create shelf space, value addition, and access to markets. And that's going to take a push and a pull. And you, citizen diaspora, have a role to play to demand that each of the grocery stores in London create an African food aisle where we can celebrate the best of our food. Because if you do that, you create jobs back home. You address the migration challenge and you empower other people. I can tell you through ACE Food that we have not seen our staff trying to relocate anywhere because they're guaranteed a good job, livable wage, health insurance, a warm meal, and they see the value creation and the impact they're having on lives in Nigeria so they don't have to leave to go anywhere else. Number 4, which I think is really, really critical, is that we need to ensure that we hold governments accountable for a level playing field. We're starting to see trade wars emerge across the world. And I think this is time for Africa to step into the gap. Because right now, Africa only contributes 4% to world trade. And we know that we can feed ourselves and feed the world. And this is where we need to demand level playing fields when it comes to global policy. And this is where One Campaign comes in. The One Campaign has been pushing for fairer financing, for concessional financing, and for strategic grant investments to unlock the potentials in our region. We currently pay unfair risk premiums for the financing that comes into Africa, which is now about 500% more. And we're excited about using the G20, and South Africa is hosting the G20 this year for the first time in our history as a continent, to use that platform to push and demand for fairer financing. Because for agriculture to truly be unlocked, you need infrastructure. You need access to road networks, energy efficiency and cold chain to reduce the post-harvest losses. You need huge investments in transportation and logistics around shipping, etc. And we need concessional financing for that. Through the World Bank IDA, through innovative financing from patient investors, and we need to unlock catalytic capital. And this is where I appeal to you to definitely push your government, starting in the UK and many other parts of the world that are retreating from their role as an international player, and really fight for this. I'll end with this, because it's International Women's Month and International Women's Day. And we believe that food is medicine. At the One campaign, I talked about us fighting for economic opportunities and healthier lives. And the truth is, food is cross-cutting. Between economic opportunities, creating jobs, creating wealth, unlocking catalytic capital and financing, and health. Because what you ingest affects your health. Food is medicine. And we know that climate change is setting us back, and women are bearing the brunt of the effects of climate change on the food ecosystem and their lives. We really would like to ensure that as we think about food and we think about agriculture, we prioritize nutritious food. We prioritize homegrown food that fills and nourishes our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. And so let's not just push for production increases, but push for the production and consumption of healthy food, and ensure that we don't run into the challenge where oftentimes Africa is considered the sink of the world and unhealthy food is dumped on our continent. Let us hold ourselves and our governments accountable to protect its citizens, but also inform ourselves of what healthy food is. I'm convinced that we can move the needle by investing in women and investing with women across the entire food ecosystem. And that's why I created an initiative called Leading Women in Food Fellowship through the African Food Changemakers, selecting and celebrating women who are in the food ecosystem. So I am one of millions of amazing women who are trying to transform this sector. So today, I applaud and celebrate each of you who's committed to the sector, recognizing how important it is, how pivotal it is, and how we must work collaboratively to push the sector forward. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for joining us on this fight. And I look forward to meeting you all in person and working alongside you to change that face of Africa, from a hungry child to a successful female entrepreneur. We're well on our way, and we will celebrate many more successes because of what you've decided and what you've done today. Thank you.
From the heart of Africa.
Please say thank you once again to Ms. Al-Karyani, Dr. Caroline Green, and Didi. And